My name's Jake, and I work the late shift at a Shell station off Route 33 in upstate New York. Most people think it's just burnt coffee and restocking shelves. Counting the till. Watching the clock tick past midnight. But at 1 a.m., when the world goes silent and the cooler hum is the only sound left, sometimes things walk in that shouldn't. The air outside had that heavy, cold stillness that makes your breath hang in the air like smoke. Frost was already forming on the gas pumps, crystallizing in patterns that looked almost deliberate. I'd just finished sweeping the aisles when the door chime echoed through the empty station, that electronic ding that always sounded too cheerful for the dead of night. A man walked in, wearing a faded red baseball cap and a green army jacket. Mid-50s, maybe older, hard to tell. His face had that weathered look, like he'd spent too many nights outside. Shoulders squared, like he was bracing against something invisible. He kept one hand buried deep in his pocket, the other clutching a small duffel bag that looked empty, but sagged like it held something heavy. He didn't browse, didn't look at prices, just drifted through the aisles in this slow, deliberate way, glancing up every few seconds to see if I was watching him. His boots made no sound on the tile floor. That should have been my first warning. Everyone's boots make sound on that floor. The tile echoes everything. After what felt like forever, he grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler and came to the counter. The fluorescent lights above us flickered once, then twice. His lips were pale, cracked, dry like he hadn't had water in days, maybe weeks. When I reached out to take the bottle, he leaned forward, close enough that I could smell motor oil and something else, something sweet and rotten, and his breathing was shallow, raspy, like air struggling through a damaged pipe. You ever seen something follow you home from work? The question hung in the air between us. I blinked, trying to process what he'd just asked. My hand froze halfway to the register. No. Can't say I have. He smiled then, a small, twitching thing that didn't reach his eyes. His pupils were dilated, black pools that seemed to swallow the light around them. You will. 2 words. Soft, final. He dropped a $10 bill on the counter. The paper was damp, like it had been sitting in water. Grabbed his water and walked toward the door. I called after him about his change, but he didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge me. The door chime rang as he stepped out into the darkness. I walked to the window to watch him go. No car started. No footsteps crunched on the gravel lot. The parking lot was empty except for my beat-up Honda under the single working streetlight. He was just gone. Swallowed by the November night like he'd never existed. I stood there for a full minute, watching the darkness, waiting for movement. Nothing. That night, when I finally closed up at 2 a.m., frost had formed on my windshield in perfect handprints, 5 fingers spread wide, pressed against the glass. The prints led from the tree line across the lot to my driver's door, then back toward the woods. Each print was deliberate, purposeful. I told myself it was nothing. Condensation, wind patterns, kids messing around, something logical. But on the drive home down Route 33, my rearview mirror tilted down by itself. I'd adjust it, eyes on the road, and 30 seconds later, it would tilt again, always pointing at the back seat. always showing me the empty space behind me, or what I hoped was empty. 2 nights later, I was locking up when I heard it. Soft tapping on the station glass, just a wet handprint on the door. Fingers spread wide exactly like the frost prints. Water dripping down the glass in slow trails that caught the fluorescent light. The print was on the inside of the glass. My heart hammered against my ribs. The cooler hum suddenly felt too loud, drowning out my thoughts. I grabbed my jacket, locked up with shaking hands, and practically ran to my car. The entire drive home, I watched my rearview mirror, watched the empty back seat, watched the road behind me for headlights that never came. The next morning, I called my manager and quit. Didn't give notice. Didn't ask about my last check. Just said I was done and hung up. Because when I got home that night, after the handprint, there were wet footprints on my apartment stairs. Boot prints, leading up to my door, one step at a time, water pooling in each impression. And my door was open, just a crack, maybe 2 inches, enough to see darkness inside, enough to know I'd locked it when I left. I didn't go in. I got back in my car and drove to a friend's place, slept on his couch, went back the next day with him and 2 other guys. Nothing inside was disturbed. Nothing was missing. But my bathroom mirror had condensation on it, and someone had drawn a single word with their finger. Followed. I moved 3 weeks later, changed my route to work at my new job, stopped driving Route 33 altogether, started taking highways, even if they added time. Anything to avoid that stretch of road. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving home, I still see him in my rearview mirror. Red cap, green jacket, standing at the edge of whatever road I'm on, half hidden in shadow. And every time I see him, he's a little bit closer to my car than he was before. My name's Marcus, and in 1998, I was working nights at a 24-hour BP station outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. Most people think gas stations are just fluorescent lights and stale coffee. But at 2 a.m., when you're the only person for miles, sometimes the phone rings, and sometimes you shouldn't answer. We had this old payphone mounted to the side of the building, one of those green metal ones with chipped paint and a flickering light above it. Nobody used it anymore. Cell phones were taking over. The thing hadn't rung in weeks, until that night. 2 a.m. Dead silent, except for the hum of the freezers and the buzz of the overhead lights. Then I heard it. The payphone ringing outside, sharp, metallic, echoing across the empty lot. 1 ring, 2, 3. I ignored it. Wrong number, had to be. 5 rings, 6. Something about the sound made my skin crawl. I walked outside, the November air biting at my face, and picked up the receiver. Hello? The line clicked, then breathing, shallow, wet, like someone struggling for air through water. Then a man's voice, low and distorted like it was coming through a broken speaker. Don't hang up. My hand tightened on the receiver. Who is this? More breathing, deliberate, patient. Then, there's someone in your bathroom. My blood went cold. I turned toward the store windows, eyes darting to the back. The bathroom door was closed. I hadn't seen anyone go in all night. The parking lot was empty, just my car under the single working streetlight. "Yeah, okay, nice prank," I said, trying to sound confident, trying to convince myself. The voice cut through my words like a blade. "She's been waiting." I slammed the receiver down and ran back inside, locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I grabbed the store phone to call the police. That's when I heard it. A soft knock coming from the bathroom door. I froze, stared at that door for what felt like an eternity. The fluorescent lights above me flickered once, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. "Store's closed," I called out, voice cracking. "You need to leave." Silence. Then another knock, louder this time. 3 deliberate strikes against the hollow door. I grabbed the spare key from the wall and a broom handle from the supply closet. My heart hammered against my ribs as I approached the door, unlocked it from a distance, and pushed it open with the broom. The lights inside flickered on. Empty. Sink. Mirror. Toilet. Nothing. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic, like old pennies left in water. I exhaled, a nervous laugh escaping my throat. That's when I noticed the stall door slowly creaking open on its own. Inside, scratched deep into the metal partition in jagged letters, were the words, "I told you not to hang up." I didn't think. I just ran, bolted out of the store, got in my car, and didn't come back until sunrise when my manager arrived. The cops checked everything that morning. The bathroom, the security footage. No one had entered the store for hours before or after that call. But the tape did show something. The payphone outside, ringing by itself at exactly 2 a.m. The receiver lifting off the hook, swinging in the air like someone was holding it, and for just a split second, barely visible in the grainy footage, a pale hand gripping the receiver. The booth itself was empty. I quit 2 days later, never worked nights again. But sometimes, late at night, when my phone rings and there's silence on the other end, I hear that wet breathing, and I always hang up immediately, because I know what happens when you don't. My name's Alex, and in 2019, I was working nights at a Chevron station in southern Arizona. Desert towns after dark feel like another planet. No traffic, no wind, just the buzz of bugs against the fluorescent lights and the low hum of the pumps. And sometimes, in that silence, things appear that shouldn't exist. It was 3:20 a.m. when I saw the headlights. A white sedan pulled up to pump 7, slow and deliberate, like it was gliding instead of driving. The engine made no sound. That should have been my first warning. A woman got out, tall, blonde, maybe mid-30s. She wore a long black coat despite the warm night, the fabric hanging heavy like it was soaked in water. I waved through the window. She didn't look up. After a minute, I noticed she wasn't pumping gas. She was just standing beside the car, staring down at something in her hand. The overhead lights cast her shadow long across the pavement, but the shadow didn't move when she did. I stepped outside, the desert heat still radiating off the concrete. "Ma'am, you need help?" She didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge me. I got closer, close enough to see what she was holding. An old Polaroid photograph, the edges yellowed and curled with age. It showed a family of 3, a man, a woman, and a little girl standing in front of a gas station. Not this one, but an older model of the same brand. maybe from the 80s. The colors were faded, washed out, like the photo had been sitting in sunlight for decades. "Ma'am," I said again, louder this time. She looked up at me, and I swear, her eyes caught the fluorescent light in a way that made them look glassy, almost reflective, like a cat's eyes in headlights. No pupils, just light bouncing back at me. She spoke softly, barely audible over the hum of the pumps. "Do you know where they went?" My throat tightened. "Who?" She looked back at the photo, then at the empty highway behind me, stretching into darkness. "My family. They were supposed to meet me here. I tried to offer help, maybe call someone for her, but before I could finish the sentence, she turned and got into her car. No door slam, no engine starting, no headlights flicking on. The car just wasn't there anymore." I stood at pump 7, staring at empty space, my heart hammering against my ribs. The desert air suddenly felt cold despite the heat. I ran back inside and pulled up the security footage, rewinding to 3:20 a.m. Nothing. No white sedan. No woman. Just me, standing at pump 7, talking to empty air, holding my hand out like I was reaching for something that wasn't there. 2 weeks later, I was doing inventory in the back when my coworker called out, "Hey Alex, you dropped this?" He was holding something, an old dusty Polaroid wedged behind the counter where the register sits. The paper was brittle, the image faded. It showed a man, a woman, and a little girl standing in front of a gas station. The same photo, the same family. Except this time, there was a fourth figure standing just behind them, half hidden in shadow. A tall woman in a long black coat, and she was staring directly at the camera. I quit the next day. Didn't give notice, didn't ask questions, just walked out and never came back. But sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving through empty stretches of highway, I see her in my rearview mirror, standing at the edge of the road, watching. And every time I see her, she's holding that photograph, waiting for someone else to ask where her family went. If you're still here after those 3 stories, you're exactly the kind of person who belongs in the Nightmare Journal community. These aren't just stories I found online. These are real accounts from real people who lived through something they can't explain. And every week I bring you more from the places you'd least expect. Gas stations, motels, cruise ships, the ordinary places that become extraordinary when the sun goes down. If you want to hear more stories like these, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because next week, I've got 3 more encounters that will make you think twice about working the night shift. And here's the thing. I know some of you have your own stories. Maybe something happened to you at a gas station. Maybe you saw something you can't explain. Drop it in the comments below. The best ones might end up in a future video. Until next time, stay safe out there. And if you're ever at a gas station late at night and someone asks you where their family went, don't answer.